Hey friends, welcome to Sabbath School Daily, where we have been studying from this lesson right here, Ephesians. This week we're going to be studying from lesson number 11, which has the title, Practicing Supreme Loyalty to Christ. And today is Sabbath's Intro, where we're going to be introducing what we're going to be talking about this week. Now you'll see that this week is also a complicated, difficult week. It's very controversial. Just as last week's was, this week is perhaps even more so. We're going to be looking at Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 through 9, especially in these first few days. And you'll see from the very memory verse, from the very get-go, this already introduces a difficult reality. This is what appears here in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 9. That's the memory verse, and this is what it says. And masters, treat your slaves in the same way. Do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him. Friends, one of the things that we have to understand when it comes to reading the Bible, when it comes to relating to the Bible, is the foundational understanding that we're dealing with something that goes way back, with something that was written in a different context, in a different time, in a different culture, basically a different world as the one that we live in right now. And because of that, we have to remember that although God is outside our scope of time, he does insert himself into our scope of time. And what that means is that God is constantly meeting people where they're at. And that means that many times God has to choose between bad and worse, not between bad and good or good and bad. You'll see that in the Old Testament, there are several moments where he winks at the times of ignorance. We see that concept in the New Testament, but God winks at the times of ignorance where there are more important truths that he's revealing to his people, things that precede other realities. So you'll see that when it comes to, for example, the concept of polygamy. Is that ideal? Is that what God wanted? Is that what he intended? Absolutely not. There is not one single shred of evidence in the entire Bible or one place in Scripture where God sheds positive light on polygamy. Not one place where he considers it to be a normal thing, a good thing. No, actually, what we always find when it comes to polygamy, it never leads anywhere good. So why doesn't God outright ban polygamy, and why doesn't he just end it, and say you can't do this? Well, you'll see that he does say that. But humans, because they're obstinate, because they're stubborn, you'll find that they still do it. And so God, he works with them where they're at, leading them to a better place, leading them to a better understanding. There's a very important concept here to be understood, which is the concept of present truth. What present truth means is that for every age, for every historical moment, there is something that God is working on when it comes to his people, when it comes to the world. And so present truth is progressive because truth in the Bible, while it is all truth, it's progressive. You'll see that there are several different moments throughout the Bible where God is leading them to new understandings. You'll see that the concept of the second coming, for example, it wasn't the most obvious, most well understood thing in the Old Testament times. They were dealing with other things. They were dealing with the coming of the Messiah. Later on in the New Testament, you'll see that it's further explained. It's further enlightened. And you'll see that same reality with so many different things in the Bible. So when it comes to these more difficult, more challenging topics, such as husbands and wives, such as slavery, such as polygamy, these are things that God is not condoning them at any moment, but he is having patience with the human family that is extremely stubborn and that has a hard time following what God tells them to do. And so you'll see that oftentimes they learn the hard way. They learn, but it's the hard way. Unfortunately, it's not what God wanted, it's not what he intended, but it's what ends up happening. And God doesn't outright destroy them, he leads them through these experiences that they have. When it comes to slavery, from the get-go, please understand that throughout the history of Israel, of Old Testament Israel, God removes them from a place of slavery. He removes them from a situation of bondage, of slavery to the Egyptians. That was cruel. That was a horrible situation to be in, where these people were treated as animals. And when he removes them, God works with them throughout their future, throughout their generations. You'll see that the first laws that God provides regarding slaves and masters, or the having of slaves or the reality of slaves, God shifts what they had previously known. Not anymore is slavery one of dominion, of ownership. Slavery, for the most part, becomes an economic measure of paying off debt. And so within Israel, that's what that becomes. Again, it's not the ideal, but it's God elevating people through time, taking them from one situation, making it better, and over time leading them to a broader, better understanding. God is patient with humans. If there's one thing that I have learned about God is that he is very patient, and he will, even though he doesn't agree, even though he doesn't condone or like, he will be patient and he will lead people through present truth. In the New Testament, especially here in the book of Ephesians, you have to remember that Paul is writing to Greeks. He's writing to Gentiles. And these people's understanding of slavery was radically different than what was the understanding of the Israelites of their time. Their concept of slavery was very akin to the slavery of the Old Testament Egyptians and the slavery of the world at large outside of Israel. And so here again, you'll find God using the apostle to guide these people in present truth, people that were used to the Greek, to the Roman, to the world's understanding of slavery, and was bringing them up so that they could get caught up with Israel, where the concept of slavery was already something different than what the rest of the world practiced. So as we go through this week's lesson, I want you to remember this. Please remember, God is a God that is outside of time, but he's dealing with beings of time. And so he is very patient. He applies the concept of present truth. He guides people in knowledge so that they can learn and grow and reach where he wants them to reach. Because God knows the reality that parents know. Kids don't learn overnight. No one is disciplined overnight into doing whatever others want them to do. God knows that more than anyone. And so he is patient. He leads people over time, bringing them to the place where he wants them to be. So remember that as we go through this very controversial lesson. May God bless you. I hope that you have a happy Sabbath or have had a happy Sabbath. Please remember to like, to share, and to subscribe to our videos. We release one every day. Also, please remember to comment down below if you have any questions or any comments. It'd be great to interact with you. And I hope to see you again here tomorrow for another Sabbath School Daily.